All right, we've all been warned. We are being recorded. All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. This is Ron from Legal Server. I'll be doing today's training. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. On the screen, I have our agenda for today, which is to talk about events and tasks in Legal Server, and then also running reports for end users, people who are not report writers within Legal Server. We're scheduled for 2 hours today. We'll probably go about an hour or so give you something to look forward to. On Tuesday, I think we went a little over an hour, and then nobody wanted to do a sing-along or tell jokes, so we ended an hour early. All right, so I'm going to flip over to your demo site. Well, I should say before I do that, I'm going to guess most of all of you have been on one of these sessions by now. If you haven't, we encourage questions during these sessions, so feel free to ask questions at any time. Don't feel like you'll be interrupting me or you have to wait till the end or something. You can ask questions one of two ways. You can either unmute yourself, ask a question on the audio side, or you can post into the Zoom chat room. If you haven't seen it before, if you put your mouse cursor over where you can see my screen, excuse me, you should see a black bar pop up at the bottom. And over on the far left, you'll see where you can mute and unmute yourself. And then over towards the right, you'll see where you can click to open up the chat room. All right, so let's jump over to your demo site. Let's talk about events and tasks in Legal Server. So the way you all are using events and tasks is you're using them when they're attached to cases. So that's what we're going to look at today. So I've logged in to and landed on the home page, and that's got my assignments list here, which has got all the open and pending cases I'm assigned to. So I'm just going to grab one of these cases to work on. All right, so I clicked on the case number to come to the case. So related to events and tasks, if I scroll down below the top area of the page, I've got a row of tabs here, which you may have seen at some point. And if I click on the task events tab, that's going to show me all of the incomplete tasks for this case and any upcoming events for this case. So notice on the task list, and it's titled incomplete task. And if you notice, there's two default filters on this list. So completed is NA or no, and status equals incomplete. So there may have been other tasks recorded on this case. They've just been marked complete, so they're not showing up in the list. And just like with any list in Legal Server, I can take these default filters off temporarily. So I will do that on the task list, and let's see if we get anything. Yep, so hopefully you can see now, screen's refreshed, and there are two tasks that have been recorded on this case, and both of those are now complete. The upcoming events list is the same way. You've got a default filter. It's showing you events that are scheduled for today and going out a month. So from 6/25 to 7/25. And I can also temporarily take off that filter and see if we've got any others. And I can see we did have one past event recorded on this case. For either or both of these lists, just like in other lists in Legal Server, if you've taken off some default filters and you want to get back to the defaults, you can just refresh the page. So I'll do that. I'll just click my browser's refresh button. And then you should be able to see the screen now. I'm back to no incomplete task and one upcoming event. So let's create a task, and then we'll create an event. So I can do that, create a task in a couple of ways. If I'm looking at the task list here, I've got a little plus button to create one. I also, if I go to the actions menu, if you don't already know, the actions menu is your friend in Legal Server in many places, but particularly when working on cases. And if I open up the actions menu, I do see I've got a link there to add a task, to add a new event, and also to add a deadline. A deadline is a special type of task, and I'll come back in a second and create one of those so you can see what those look like. So while I'm here on the actions menu, I'm just going to click on add task. So this is going to bring up a form I need to fill out. There's a few things that are required on here, some things that are not required. The first thing I see is it's being linked to the I'm in trouble case that I'm working on. And so the title is a required field. So I'm just going to say this is some task. Due date is optional on task, but you often want to enter that. So if you want to get reminders based on a task, you can manually enter a due date. You have the little calendar icon out here that you can click on if you want to pick a date that way. And you also have this little calculator link here. So what the calculator link will do is it'll open up a little row of fields, and you can come in, you can do something like, you know, if I got something and I've got 35 days to, got something in the mail, I've got 35 days to respond to it. And so I put that in, and that calculates the due date as July 30th of 2021. So a couple of things about the calculated due date. So it's not taking into account weekends or court holidays or program holidays or anything like that. So if you are doing this in the context of something that's, you know, that you have to file in court, that's the bad news, is that, you know, July 30th might be a Saturday, Sunday, or a court holiday. So it's not really your due date. So the good news is that your due dates, they might be early, but they will never be late. All right, the next field down is the list date. So in the context of the way you're all using tasks, it's not going to be that big of a deal. So you'll probably just leave it at the default of today, the current date. If you all change the way you're displaying things and display like a task list on your homepage, what the list date will let you do is have a list that's in the system, but it's not going to show on your current task list if you all decide to display a generic current task list until the list date comes up. So if I was putting in a task for something that wasn't due until, you know, the end of the, you know, third quarter or something like that, I might put a list date of September 15th or something. So it's just not cluttering up my current task list until that date rolls around. Tasks can have types. This is a list of values that your site administrators control. So you all can change this list over time. And then you can, when you're entering a task, you can go ahead and mark it completed. That's not typical, but you can do that if you just need the record of it for some reason. You can enter a note on a task. It kind of confusingly says calendar notes out to the side, but it's just a task or a note on this task. If you enter a note, you can email that note. Hopefully everybody's seen that feature in Legal Server, where there's many places where you can enter notes. You can also at the same time have an email message sent out to one or more recipients. And you can also send a note as a message, which is a messaging feature. It's purely internal to Legal Server. So if you're doing something, you know, and you don't want it going out via email and it's to another user in the system, then you can use the message feature. So I'll send it to myself just so I have something up in the messages so you can see what that looks like. And this is a search and select box. So you start typing somebody's name. So I could say, you know, I'm also going to send this to Stan, and one of his 3 guys is here. So we have a question in the chat where it says calendar notes. Can you change that wording? Might be able to. I'm not sure on this particular form. That's something that your site administrators and the folks that are working here at Legal Server can look into. Now, in Legal Server, there's a concept of task being private. So the way that you all are using tasks is not really going to be that relevant. And in any event, however you use task in Legal Server, I always just tell people just to ignore this field because, you know, it's nothing, even if you mark a task as private, at a minimum, your site administrators are going to be able to see it. So it could show up in reports and other places. So if you have something that's truly private, you know, what I tell people is just don't put it into Legal Server. Users on the task defaults to you. So Demo Trainer is on here already. I've got a remove link on Demo Trainer, so I can create a task for one or more other people, not including myself. But we assume that if you're creating a task, you're probably going to be involved in it. So again, I can, you know, can add Stan, can add Thomas, as many people as I want to. Office and program are going to default based on your information in the system. So all tasks are sliced and diced by offices and programs. And if that's all I need to do on my task, I can click continue and create it. I also have a reminders section here. So you all are using the enhanced reminders in Legal Server. So before I click on this button, I always warn people when I click on this button, you're going to see a lot of stuff. And so it can initially look like, you know, it's going to take, you know, a minute or 2 minutes or something just to fill out reminder stuff. But most of the stuff that you're going to see in here is entirely optional. So I'll go ahead and click the button. And I'll scroll down so you can see this is the full reminder section. And then also notice below it, there's another button for add reminder. So you can have multiple reminders on a task. And we'll see the same thing on events as well. So I'll come back and go over a lot of the stuff. So kind of your typical thing, you know, I want to get a reminder and I'm just going to say, you know, I want to be reminded 1 day before the due date on this task. And then, you know, I want to remind myself and I want to get up through the message center and maybe I'm going to go ahead and remind Stan and Thomas as well. So that's all I need to do to create a basic reminder. So having done that, I'll come back and go over some more of the stuff in a little more detail. So I just selected the default relative to the due date. But I have an option instead to do a specific time. So if I can say, you know, regardless of when this task is due, I want to be reminded on this date at this time. And I always forget when I click on that, it takes away the previous things that I had entered. As you saw over on the right, you can get message or reminders by email or through the message center and optionally through SMS. You can change the default message. There's a default message in Legal Server that you can use, but you can also instead come in here and, you know, put a specific subject. There's probably not any templates in here. Yeah, there's like a test template in there. You can manually put in a reminder subject, and you can also put in a reminder message. Below that, there's a little link for show variables. What this will let you do is you could construct a message that says, you know, this is a reminder about, or this is a reminder for, you know, the first and last name of the recipient, the date and time for the start of the task, or the due date of the task, I should say. And then you can put in markers for location and court details. So what that would do, if you did all that, that would, when the message was generated, it would replace those markers with information from the task or the event itself. Now, over on the right, you've got the recipients. So your first section of recipients are contacts on this case, which is people that are linked to this case. So you can see I've got myself, Demo Trainer, the client, Stan, and Thomas. I'm going to click the Show Others button. It's probably not going to show anything else, This would be other people who have linked to the case. So, if I had, opposing counsel, judges, other interpreters, other people linked to the case, those would show up there. You also have the ability to just add outside recipients by entering in the first and last name, then email or phone. And X that off. Then as far as the way that these people up here will get notified, you can see I've got 3 different ways potentially to notify them. Having an email message sent, a message center message, and SMS, which is texting. So looking at Demo Trainer, so I have an email address in the system, which I can see there. So I have the option to get a reminder by email. I'm a user in the system, so I can be notified through the message center. And for SMS, I don't know if it'll show up for you. When I put my mouse over the checkbox for SMS, a little pop-up comes up and says there's no mobile phone number for this person. So I can't obviously send it by SMS if there's no mobile phone number in there. For I'm in trouble, the client, there's no email address. There's no, they're not a user in the system, of course, so I can't go through the message center, and there's no mobile phone. So I don't have any way to send a reminder to the client. And then Stan and Thomas have the same options as I do for myself, which is email or message center. All right, and so again, I could come down here, click on add reminder, fill this out and say I want a second reminder for this task. But I'll click on remove for that one. Click on continue. Brings us back to the front end of the case. And if I go to task and events, I can see there's the task that I created. It's a due date of July 30th. And it tells me the type and so on. Now, if I want to do something with this task, I can click on the title. And then over here, I've got on the left, I've got a link to edit the task. I also have a link at the top to mark it as completed. So of course, you may have reasons to come in and edit a task. So if you create it, something changes, and you're talking to Stan and he says, oh yeah, I'm not working on this case anymore, so I don't want to be reminded about any task on it. I could come up in here and remove Stan and change anything else that I needed to. Come down and change information about the reminder. If one is still upcoming, I could also just remove the reminder. And if I do make changes, I need to click on continue. So that's going to save my changes. The other link that I have up here at the top is to click to mark this task as completed. So I could, click on edit this task, then come in and change the completed field to yes, scroll down and click on continue. This link will just save me, a couple of clicks. You should be able to see the screens refreshed and completed is now showing as yes here. All right. So, and I, Stan, in response to your message, so I don't see a way to delete task. I don't think we have a way. I don't recall seeing one in the previous session about deleting events either. So if there's something I'm missing, please feel free to let me know that. So I'm going to go back to our case, and I have a nice handy link up here at the top. And the next thing I want to do is create a deadline. So a deadline is just a special type of task, and it has one additional attribute that may be useful to you on some of your cases, is that it gives you the option to create an alert on a case. And so I'll do that so that you can see what that looks like. Now for a deadline, I do need to do that through the actions menu. So I'm going to go to actions menu, add deadline. So this is essentially the same form that we saw before. The one thing that's different is this business here about, is this a case alert? So I'm going to say this is a really important task. And I'm going to say yes. I want to make a create a case alert related to this. Deadlines can have there's a separate list of types. So most sites don't have any types. This site doesn't, so that's not uncommon. Due date works the same ways we saw before. So I'm just going to say on Monday. As you can see, the rest of this form is all the same. The reminders are exactly the same as we saw before. I'll click on continue. And so now we're back on the case profile, and you can probably see the big the box with the big red border around it. That's the case alert that I created. Since this is a case alert from, in case you've seen alerts in other places, sometimes depending on the alert, you'll see an option to dismiss it right on the alert itself. This is an alert created from a deadline, so there's no dismiss link up here. You know, get rid of this big red box. I don't want to see it anymore. To do that, you just need to mark the deadline as complete. So easy way to do that is just to go to the alert details. And so the alert details are the deadline / task that you created. So you could come in and mark it as completed. Then you can click on your case number to go back to your case. And we should see that alert is gone, and it has. All right, so we're still in a task and events tab here. If I come down to an event, let's go ahead and create an event. It's a very similar form to what we've seen for task and deadlines. The title is required. So I'm just going to say the title of this is hearing. Location is a free-form text box. So if this was, you know, a hearing at a courthouse, and I think I remember asking, being told that you all are going back to court now. So this could be, you know, anything that's going to make sense to you, if it's be helpful, you know, particular courthouse, courtroom, whatever it happens to be. Events can have types. This just lets you kind of slice and dice things for either, you know, ongoing or reporting purposes. I can see that either through your existing data or somebody has been in and added quite a few different event types here, because very few of these are kind of like, you know, the default ones we include in LegalServer. So I'll just say this is a plea arraignment. The event created date, I'm not sure if that's just something on your demo site for testing, or if you all have something in mind with that date. It's not a required field. Then events by default are not going to be all day events. They're going to be 1 hour events, and they're going to start at the top of the upcoming hour. So that's why you see today at 1 o'clock and going till 2 o'clock. If you do want to enter an all day event, of course, you just click yes for all day. And it takes away the start and stop times. And you can change the start date and time and the end date and time. So if this is, you know, if I'm really going to be at the courthouse for 3 hours on arraignments, I can say from 1 to 4. There's an option here for front desk item, which may or may not be useful to you. So this feature was added to LegalServer years ago for really large offices. And, you know, back when, for the most part, everybody was coming into an office, but, you know, larger offices that might have a front desk or a reception desk that you never knew who was going to be at that location on any given day or any given time. And so the idea with this was, if you had a client coming in or somebody coming into the office that was going to be approaching that front desk, you could say, you know, yeah, you know, opposing counsel's coming in for a meeting, you know, tomorrow at 1 o'clock. And if you tagged it as a front desk item, whoever was sitting at that front desk could look at a special view of the calendar in LegalServer and see all of the items for the office that were tagged as front desk items. The private event field, same comments as I had about the private field on task. So in theory, this would mean if somebody went looking and could see your calendar, they would not see the details about this event. But just like with task, at a minimum, any site administrator would be able to see all the details. They could be pulled out into reports and so forth. Scheduled bys, the person creating the event, the office and the program, those are just showing here. They're read-only. I can't, I can click on them, but I can't do anything with them. You can create recurring calendar events. If you click on the show button, you can select a recurrent schedule, daily, weekly, every 2 weeks, monthly, and so on. And notice that you're required to put in a recurrence ends date. So I always like to caution people when you're creating recurring events in LegalServer, because they don't work in the way that you're probably used to, whether you use Outlook, Google Calendar, or something like that. So when you create recurring events in LegalServer, they're created as a series of standalone events. So if I went in and said recurrent schedule weekly and then put in 12/31/2021, that would be creating, however many weeks are left in the calendar year, so roughly 26 or something, separate standalone events. And if I wanted to go back and change something about those events, I would have to edit each one individually. So if you do create recurring events, I always just tell people, don't go too far out into the future unless you're really sure that you're not going to be changing something. Then we have the attendees. So just like with tasks, you can have multiple people on task. You can have multiple attendees. Instead of the note box being exposed on the form itself, you have a little button to add a note. And you can see this is going to add a note of the type calendar notes, and you can optionally give it a subject, optionally put in a body, and then optionally send the email or send it through the LegalServer Message Center. So just the same way that we saw on task and other places that you can enter notes. We have the add reminder button. So I'll just show you that. It's exactly the same thing that we saw on a task. All right, so I'll click continue. This shows me the event profile. It shows me at the top up here in this little breadcrumbs area, it shows me the type in parentheses. So I can see that's a hearing. Over on the left, I've got an add note link. So if I want to add an additional note to this event, I can do that. I can also add a task to an event. And then there's a link here for add arraignment, which in the last session, we weren't real sure exactly what the function of this was, other than it is defaulting the type to, well, actually, I think I had selected plea arraignment. So I don't think it's really defaulting anything. But you may get more on that. Yeah. And so again, Stan, I've not yet seen the way that you're offering people to delete events. That's pretty common, but I haven't seen a link for that yet. So please let me know if I'm missing something. So I'll click our case number to get back to our case. And of course, now if I come down here, I can see there's my 2 upcoming events. And if I go back to my home page, you get 2 tabs on your home page related to the calendar. The first one is just my calendar, which is going to show you just your events. And it's going to show you a week at a time. Then you also, and on this weekly view, you do have over on the right, You've got arrows to go back, a week at a time, go forward, week at a time. And then in the middle, you've got a little today button. So if you've gone back or forward in time, you can quickly jump back to the current week. The office calendar is, I assume this has been built to be just what it sounds like. This is going to be upcoming or events for the current week for the office that you're in. So any event that is linked to the office that you're in is going to show up here. So these all happen to be, ones I've created, but if somebody else had gone in and created one, and it was linked to the same office, then it would show up on this list. All right, so that is events and tasks in LegalServer. The other topic that we wanted to talk about today was running reports for end users. So as it indicates on the agenda there's this concept in LegalServer of people that we call report writers, and they are people who can build and edit reports. So what we're talking about today is just running reports that a report writer has built in your system. The report writers, of course, you all decide who's going to have the permissions to do that. Typically, all administrators are also report writers, but that can be a different set of people and so forth. But what we're talking about today is we're not a report writer, so we're just going to be considered an end user. So let's flip back over to the demo site. As you're probably not going to be too surprised, I'm going to click on the reports tab in the green navigation bar to talk about reports. So you can see on your demo site, you've got 85 active reports in the system. You do have a view all link there if you want to view all 85 on one page at one time. But these are all of the reports that your report writers have put into the system. Not all of these reports you will have the permission to run. So I'm going to think the first one, I think I'll get denied, permission denied. I just want to show you what that looks like. No, actually I have permission to run that one. Let's see, let me look at this. Yes, here we go. So I clicked to run this aged open cases report based on last time entry, and you can see the message that I got here. If you run reports in LegalServer, you click on a report name and you get this message, you think you should be able to see a report and run it. You just need to contact one of your report writers within your system and ask them to give your user role the permission to run that report. So these, I always like to point out to people, don't take this personally. So nobody's gone in and said, well, don't let demo trainer run this report. So these are done by user roles. So anybody that's got the same user role as I do is not going to be able to run this report. So let's find one that we do have permission to run. And I'm pretty sure this age race report, we can run that. Good, yes, we can. All right, so one of the concepts in reports is filters. And these work the same way that they work on lists. So, I'm sure as everybody's seen multiple times now, if you look at lists of information in LegalServer, you've got some default filters. You've got other filters that you can temporarily add. So you have the same concept in reports. So whoever built this report, if you look at the selected options, this green box, the date opened from 1/1 to 12/31/2021, that's a default filter. So most of your reports are going to have one or more default filters, just like most lists in LegalServer have one or more default filters. So whoever built this report also said, don't load the data right away. So require somebody to click on the run report button as it tells me down here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And so again, if we look back up here at our selected options, this is telling me this is going to be reporting on all cases that have a date open in the current year. So if I come down to get to the actual data on this report, so the first thing we see up here is this little chart matrix, or what we call in Legal Server, it's called a crosstab. You won't see this on every report you run, but again, this is a different element that whoever built this report added to the report. And this is just a breakdown of the data that's being pulled in. So you've got, you can see here, you've got 109 cases that have a date opened in the current year in the demo database. For those 109 cases, you can see the breakdown. So breaking down by race and age at intake. So for Asian, there are 4 cases in the data set that where the age at intake was 18 to 59, none where it was over 60, and 3 where the client was less than 18. So for the total, row total for Asians is 7, for Black 1, Hispanic 18, and so forth. And then you have your column totals. So out of these 109 cases, 50 of those, the age at intake for the client was 18 to 59, 11, they were 60 or older, and then 48, they were under 18. Now, what you will see on nearly all reports is what I call the data table here, which is just columns of information. Whoever built this report said, show people the case number. They used the magic column that lets the case number be a clickable link. So if I'm looking at this report and I'm wondering, well, this case here, why is the age at intake 0? Then I could click on any of these case numbers and it would take me to that case. Now, typically, when I'm running a report like this would be a good place where I might want to right-click and look at that case in another browser tab. So I also wanted to show you this because you all have your database somewhat divided by offices, I believe. And so depending on how the report was built, you might be able to see some data from a report. But if you go to view the specific case, you may get this message. So it's telling me I'm not allowed to view this case profile. So it just tells me I'm restricted from that. So I'll close up that browser tab. We'll come back to our report. So they said display the age at intake, the race, gender, county of residence, date open, and disposition. So reports, just like lists, also, you typically want to look at the top left, right above the data table, the column headings, to see, how many records are coming out. And so I can see up there, we're viewing 1 through 20 of 109. I've got a view 50 link if I want to view 50 at a time, and then I've got a view all link. So if I wanted to see all 109 rows of data on the page at one time, I could do that. The other thing that whoever built this report added is this idea of column breakdowns. That's all the counts of values down here. So we're only looking at 20, but there's 109 rows here. And so if I come down to the disposition column, I can see that out of those 109 cases, 26 are closed, 83 are currently open. County of residence, I've got a breakdown. So 50 of the 109 cases, the county of residence is Carson City, 12 Churchill, 3 Clark, and so on. 4 of the 109 cases, 40 are female. The client's gender is female, 11 client's gender is male, and 17 is other. And I'll mention it for anybody that's not following the chat. Stan has posted a helpful message that reports are added by the DIDS office. There are reports that you require. Stan has posted his mobile phone number and encourage you to call him anytime, night or day, with those requests. So he didn't actually put his phone number in there, but you can go over and chat and see. He is offering for them to create reports that'll be helpful. All right, so this is all pretty exciting. So now what have we learned? We've learned that for cases with the data open in the current year, there's 109 of those, and we've got some breakdowns. So if that happened to be what we needed to know, then we're done. We can go and do other things. But are there other things that we can do with this report? There are some, and the first thing I want to point out in terms of additional things to do with the data is you can export this data to Excel. Hopefully you've been on a session where you saw that you could, if you're looking at a list of information, you could export it to Excel. You can do the same thing with reports. So I will just go ahead and click on the X. This, just like when you export to Excel in a list, it's going to give you all the data, not just the data that you're looking at. So I'm looking at 1 through 20 of 109 rows of data. Not going to take long to produce that file and open it up. If you were looking at a report 1 through 20 of 85,000 rows of data, it's going to take a little while for that to be generated. So I'll click on OK, saying go ahead and open this up in my spreadsheet program. So you can see we've got the name of the report at the top, and then we've got our column headings and then our data table.
Hey, Ron, let me just clarify the other part of that question that I don't think Stan got to, and maybe just feel free to unmute your mic and chat with me. But in general, we don't, and every office can do it, however they want. But in general, we didn't envision investigators being users. Generally, like a admin or the attorney who hired the investigator for, the person whose case it is, would just input experts and investigators' time. But again, that doesn't mean that your office can't do it that way and that you can't just put your own time in there. But as far as, modifying, that has to do with the entries and not really the reports. The reports are just run based upon, whatever you select that you want in the report, or, the way Stan has them set up. We're happy to talk with you as you kind of onboard this, Zoom, telephone, email, whatever you need to kind of walk you through the steps on editing information that you can edit. And then again, like Stan said, whatever you need reports for, we're happy to walk you through how to do that, or do it for you if we need to. So, yeah, okay. So that's fine. I see, you're saying you put in your own time, and that's good. Your office can do that however you want. But as far as modifying your entries or, tailoring the reports, we're happy to kind of talk with you outside of this training session and help walk you through whatever questions you have. Thanks, Ron.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for the additional information. All right. And also looking at the spreadsheets that I've exported, just like when if you export data from a list, this is the data at a point in time. There's no connection between this spreadsheet and Legal Server. So, if I came in here and I saw that, oh, this person, I know the client on this case is not Hispanic, there's some other race, I can change it in my spreadsheet, but that change is not going to flow into Legal Server. So if it was an important change, I could make it my spreadsheet, but then at some point, we want to go back into Legal Server and correct it there. All right, so I will close up the spreadsheet. The other icon that you see is the print icon. This is automatically going to open another browser tab. And it does that because it's going to expand the report. We were looking at 1 through 20 of 109 rows. So it's going to expand it so that potentially I could print out, all the rows of data. The other thing that it's done is hopefully you can see it's triggered the print function of my browser. And so that's the window that we're seeing up here. And at this point, this is my browser. So anything I can do in my browser. So my browser on this computer is set to, instead of printing to a physical printer, to save things to PDF by default. So that's, if I clicked on save, that's what would happen here. And any of the other functions, I wanted to print a landscape instead of portrait, I can do that. By default, it's going to print all pages, but I could say, I only want to print, the first page, pages 1-3, whatever it happens to be. It's very hard to see up here, but at the very top left, you can see that it's showing the title of the report. It's also showing the date and time the report was generated and any filters that were applied. Now, possibly nobody on this call is this going to be particularly useful to, but I always like to mention it because sometimes you do have a need to say, this is, the set of data that we had in our system at a certain point in time. And this tends to be more people that are reporting like for your funders and that kind of thing. But you can come in, you can run a report like this and you can print, and a lot of times people will just print the first page, just showing this information and the total count. But so if you told somebody, on June 25th at 11 or 12:48 p.m. We had 109 cases that we'd opened so far this year, and if you wanted to sort of keep proof of that, you could print out either the entire report or just the first page, and it would do that for you. So I'm going to go ahead and click cancel to get that out of the way. And again, this opened up another browser tab. And just to come down and show you, it did expand to showing all 109 rows down here. So the same comment, if I was looking at a report that was 1 through 20 of 75,000 rows, and I click on the print button, it's going to take, several seconds, potentially depending on the report, possibly a minute or so to generate this page. It's got 75,000 rows of data in it. So I'm going to close that browser tab, get us back to our report. So what else can I do with this report? So let's look at the filter options up here. So whoever built this report, they decided what filters that I can see and what filters I can change. So they've put, looks like most of the columns in this report, they put age at intake, county of residence, and so forth. The filters will look a little bit different depending on the type of field it is. Age at intake is a numeric field. So I can come in and say, if I only wanted to see, everybody who's over 60, I could 60 or older, I could say, for example, greater than 59. If I come down and click on run report, I think we're going to go down to 11 rows. So we can see now I've got 11 rows of data down here. Also notice in the selected options, it tells you that there are 2 filters currently active on this report. So the age at intake filter and the date open filter. It also tells you that there's an and condition between these 2 filters. So you read this as, so what's this report telling me? So it's a case-based report. So it's telling me pull out cases where the client's age at intake is greater than 59 and date opened is within the current year. So if I add another filter, it would be and that. So it's going to get, your search results or your report results, I should say, are going to get smaller and smaller. If I go back up to the filters for the numeric fields, you've got equal to, less than, you could also do between. So if you have a need for that, I'll take that out of there. County of residence, counties, you may know already, it's a lookup field in LegalServer. So this will let you come in and select multiple counties if you want to filter on certain counties. You also have, for most of your lookup fields, you have an exclude checkbox. So if you wanted to, for example, say, I want to see the age race report for all of the cases opened this year. except for the ones where Carson City is the county of residence. When you check the exclude box, you may have noticed a little red exclude shows up in your filter here, as well as down in the selected options. You also have the ability, it's not something you'll probably use that much, but you have the ability to show inactive values. So lookup fields like county and gender and race and so forth can have inactive values. So you can show those. You also have two little convenience links here, select none, select all. I will select none. Your date filters like date closed and date opened all work the same way. You can manually put in a range of dates here. You also have this drop-down list of date presets. So you have quite a few options in here. So you have one that's, show me all the cases if date opened has any date at all. Show me all the cases where there's no date in the date open field and so forth. So past 7 days, 30 days. Common ones are, current month, previous month, and so forth. One of the nice things about the date presets is that these adjust automatically based on today's date. So this report is in your system, doesn't otherwise change. If somebody runs it on January 15th, 2022, these dates would automatically be adjusted here. Disposition is just another lookup field. So I could come and say, yeah, I'm interested in all the cases that were opened this year, but I'm only interested in ones that are closed at this point. I'll leave that on as a filter. Gender, I can select one or more of the genders. I think this is one where if I say show inactive values, this is what this would let me do is, and a lot of these things came in from your the test data import. And so they will go away, but this is one example that at least for a while, based on your data import, you may need to actually go in and select a lookup value that's not currently active. Office name, office, the style is a little bit different, but it's the same idea as you can select one or more offices in here. You also have the option, and this is really would be more for people building reports, but I'll point it out to you because you may see this quite a bit based on the way that you all are, working with LegalServer. This viewer's office option. So, if Stan or somebody else built this report and selected this option, then when I ran this report, and I don't remember which office I'm in, but I'm going to get information about cases that are assigned to my office. If you ran the report, you're in a different office, you would just magically get, a different list of cases because you would only get cases that are assigned to your office. We don't have it on this report, but you also could see on any one of these filters, you could see a little lock icon next to it. So you could see the filter, but you couldn't change it. I'm going to guess you are going to see quite a few reports like that. That's going to be limited to only showing you cases assigned to your office, and you're not going to be able to come in and change that filter. Program name works the same way. It also has a viewer's program. And then finally, race is just another lookup here. So let's see if we get any results. So I'm going to select Hispanic there for race. So again, in the selected options, what I'm asking the system to show me are any cases where the client's race is Hispanic and the current disposition is closed and the case was opened this year. I'll click on Run Report to refresh the data, and let's see if we get anything. Yeah, we got some. Yeah, we got 5 cases. All right, so I'm going to come back up and, well, let me do it this way. So we've come in and we've made changes like this, right? And so now if I go back to the main reports page and rerun this age race report. So notice that this is just like when we first saw this report. So what I'm pointing out to you here is you can run a report, you can make changes to the filters. We haven't looked at the data options yet, but we'll do that here in just a second. Those are all temporary, and those aren't overriding the underlying report in the system. So if you're concerned about that, you know, well, I've come in and made all these changes to the age race report. Now am I, you know, breaking the report for everybody else? Just, you know, people are going to be yelling at me because I made changes. No, those changes aren't going to get saved to the back to the actual report. All right, so let's go into this data options section. So whoever built this report decided that you're going to have certain fields are going to be displayed by default, and these are just the columns in the data table down here. They also decided if there are any other fields over here that I can temporarily display on this report. And so I've got two little buttons here that will let me change the column. So I can come in, for example, and say, you know, county of residence doesn't interest me for my purposes right now. So I'm going to click that, and I'm going to click the little button that's pointing back to the left. Hopefully you can see that shifted over here. But I can say, you know, office and program, I am really interested in those two fields. I'm going to select both of those and use the other button to push those over into the display fields. I also have the ability to say, you know, I want date open to show up right after the case number. So I can click on date open, and then I can click the up button multiple times to move that. So just like if I change the filters, if I change the data options, the display options, I need to come down and click on run report. So that'll refresh the data. Changing the data options, you know, I'm not changing, you know, that we're looking at 109 cases with the default filter. I'm just taking away that county of residence column and displaying the office and the name here. Now, the other thing that I can do with the report is I can change the way it's sorted. So most reports are going to have a default sort. And if you look at the top of the data table above the viewing, it'll tell you how the report is currently being sorted. So it'll tell you ordering right now is the case ID number. And may be able to see on the remote end, if I look at the case ID column heading, there's a little triangle, and that's filled in, is pointing up. So that's an ascending sort. And there's a second triangle there for descending, so it's pointing down. And so if I click that, that's going to you know, show me the higher numbers at the top going down to the lower numbers. Now I can sort columns or sort on more than one column at a time. The way that I need to do that is to apply those sorts in the reverse order that I want them. So let's say that I wanted to sort this by office, then by program, and then by case number on this report. So the first thing I might want to do is I can go up in the data options and change the ordering of these columns. I also can click on a column heading and drag it and change the way the columns appear that way. I can do multiple drags, and once I'm done, you know, I can click to refresh the data, and I can see I didn't get that all the way over, but I'll just go ahead and leave it there, and I'll drag program over here and refresh the data. So if I wanted this sorted by office, program, then by case number, I need to apply those in the reverse order. So I want office, program, case number. So I need to sort by case number, then by program, then by office. So I'm already sorted by case number. So now I'm going to sort by program. And notice the ordering up here changes. So it shows me what I've done so far. And then I'll click again. The ordering tells me now I'm sorting by the office name, then by program name, then by case number. And if I look, I can see all these Carson City cases float to the top. We'll actually have Carson City separate law offices here. So for Daniel Spence, I've got the 2 generals, then the specialty courts for Noel Waters, 2 generals. Then I've got Churchill and so forth down the line here. All my rows of data are the same. All my counts are the same. I've just literally changed, what's being displayed, which columns are being displayed, and how they're being sorted. All right, so that is how you run reports in Legal Server, what you can do with, any given report. All the reports that you can run are going to work essentially the same way. You can see different things. So just like that report had that crosstab element. A lot of your reports probably won't have that element on there. You may have some reports that'll show you like a bar graph or a pie chart at the top or something. But otherwise, if you go to run a report, so I'll just run this case as basic report, just as an example. So this actually does have a chart on it, which actually got a couple of charts, which I don't understand. Looks like somebody was probably just kind of playing around with that. But you've got your filter options, and you've got your data options, and your export to Excel print icon here, and then you've got your data table down here. All right, well, this is the point where we get the opportunity to decide if we want to do a sing-along, tell jokes in turn, or just close up the meeting.
Anybody have any additional questions regarding today's presentation? As always, we will, this is being recorded, and we will put it up on the YouTube training site. There's a link on for those of you that don't know or haven't heard me say this before, if you go to our website and click on training, to the left, there's a whole section on Legal Server training. It takes you to our YouTube channel. And then there is a specific playlist. If you click on playlists just for Legal Server, and then go down to like view full playlist, and all of the trainings that we've done so far are up there right now. We'll get this one up as soon as possible, so you can go back and refer to it if you have questions. As always, email Stan and I, and we'll try to walk you through it. Whatever there is, there's some things we don't know, and we have to ask Legal Server. So, but yeah, we're here and available to help you onboard this as best we can. If there's no more questions, then I'll just go ahead and stop the recording, and thank you, Ron, again for your work today. We appreciate it.
All right, sounds good. Hope everybody has a good rest of the day and a good weekend.
Yep, take care.